We could do a repeat on some of these.
Mr. Chairman, what did
Can you explain if the administration talked about what the next targets are beyond Venezuela, whether it's Colombia, Cuba, and do they take any of that off the table?
Look, everybody has questions. Everybody in a lot of rooms and circles has questions about what happens for other nations in the region, right? And questions were answered about that. But the administration has been very clear. This was a law enforcement activity that had to be supported by the military because the person being taken into custody was supported by an Air Force, an Army, a Navy, Russian surface-to-air missiles, things like that. You had to have U.S. military capabilities to support our FBI, our DEA, right? So unless there's a warrant that has to be enforced in some way, in the same way that has to be enforced against Nicolas Maduro, then you shouldn't expect to see anything else take place in that way, right? That was a specific law enforcement function. That's what was conducted. It was lawful, and law enforcement functions will take place in the future.
Mr. Chairman, who does the administration, the briefers, say is running Venezuela right now?
Right now, the previous vice president, now acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, is there running the country. It's an individual that has started to make comments about being willing to work with the United States, speak to the United States, keep those channels open. But as everybody should recognize, the United States of America, and as I spoke to some over there already, the Department of War, the Department of State, Department of Treasury, Commerce, our capabilities to maintain an order and stability in our hemisphere and specifically in our backyard and in the Gulf, those capabilities are unparalleled. What everybody saw on various videos with our Department of War and our law enforcement operations, unparalleled. Only the United States of America can do that. That is what peace through strength looks like. That demonstration of what your power is, sometimes that's all the control that you need.
Did the Attorney General provide you with an OLC opinion or any other sort of legal justification for the Venezuela?
Attorney General Bondi gave us every legal justification that was required. Secretary of State Rubio laid out everything that was in his lane. Secretary of War laid out everything about the operations to include General Kane. And Director Radcliffe laid out everything that supported, that needed to be laid out to support everything in each of those previously mentioned lanes. And all of it from before, during, and after, none of it for public attribution.
You mentioned Delcy Rodriguez. Was there any deal that was cut between the administration and Delcy Rodriguez in order for her to cooperate with the United States?
As far as I know, Delcy Rodriguez is an individual that did not have a warrant that was served against her. She remains in place. It's important to, as part of planning, to make sure there are people in place that know where the keys are so that you don't have a vacuum. Can take the phone calls of leaders in the region because they know which number is calling, right? Can have those communications and things take place so you don't have a vacuum, but not because this was an individual that was somehow, in the pocket of the United States of America in some kind of way. I'm not going to say that that's anything that I've been briefed on.
Mr. Chairman, did the briefers explain what their intentions are and how they plan?
I'm going to take this and then I'll come over here. Then I'm going to go.
Did the briefers explain how they intend to run Venezuela in the future, as the president said would happen?
Look, I don't know everything that's been said in open source media, but this should be clear to everybody. And again, I said this over there to some already. This administration has never been a protracted war administration from 45 to 47. It's limited operations. The bombing in Syria against Bashar al-Assad when he was gassing his people, the hitting of Qasem Soleimani in Iraq, putting him into 5 separate pieces on an Iraqi tarmac, the hitting of the Iranian nuclear sites, and now what's taken place in Syria. These things are done before breakfast. They don't do protracted war operations. They move, in this case, a specific law enforcement function that took place. That took a significant obstacle out of the way for the Venezuelan people to go chart a new future. It is absolutely up to the Venezuelan people to go and chart a new future. And this is something that I know the Secretary of State Rubio has been very clear about. There's going to be an opportunity for free and fair elections in the future. That is the hope, that however that plays out, they have that opportunity to chart their own future not this future that was, and I think this is where you see people like Schumer and others, they're trying to create these catch-22s, where they say, well, the United States of America didn't lay out this, and this for them, but at the same time they want to say they have to have a free opportunity to chart their own future. You can't have your cake and eat it too. They have their opportunity to chart their own future. They're being given that opportunity. There is stability in the country. There's people keeping the lights on. There's something paying attention to making sure that they can, pay their bills, be in coordination with other nations in the region, in their backyard, whether Colombia or Brazil or other places, and deal with the threats that brought these warrants to take place and bring them to bear in the first place. So, what's your question?
Well, just to be clear, though, are you comfortable, I know you mentioned Vice President Rodriguez, does that mean you are comfortable with elements of the Maduro regime remaining in power at this time? And secondly, did the briefers rule out any further military action?
So I am not going to tell you what was ruled out or not ruled out by the briefers because it's not for attribution or whether it was even discussed, right? But what I will tell you in response to your question is there's a preference and there's what is the policy at the time. Everybody would love it to be the case that the people that were in power beneath Maduro were not Maduro loyalists. That would be everybody's preference, but that is not the reality. And to remove every single one of them, number one, would not be adhering to what was the law enforcement function of this because there were not warrants on everybody. And again, to specific planning, you would leave a vacuum if you took everybody out of place in that way, and there's never a goal to leave a vacuum in a situation like that where you have to have the United States of America bring boots in on the ground and create a presence like that. That would be a terrible plan of an operation. And so what you have in place is somebody that, while they wouldn't be the preference, they are in place, they are in communication with the United States of America, they know how to turn the lights on there, they know how to answer the phones, and they are also well aware that the Department of Navy is directly off the shores protecting the American homeland.
How would the U.S. take the oil? How would the U.S. just take the oil? How would the U.S. just go in there and take
What's up?
Would American boots on the ground be a mistake in Venezuela, Mr. Chairman?
It is never a mistake to protect the American homeland. No matter what, this president, as he's done from the beginning, he is going to protect the American homeland, whatever that means. He's going to use his Article 2 authority. In this particular case, he's going to use law enforcement authority against a narco-terrorist drug dealer that has been inviting in all of our adversaries, China, Russia, Iran, to essentially use their waters as a fleet week for their countries and against the United States of America. The president is going to protect our homeland no matter what. But I think everybody should expect he will always continue to protect our homeland in the way that he has demonstrated he will do it from the 45 to the 47 administration, which I will say again, limited strike against Bashar al-Assad, there and gone. Limited strike against Qasem Soleimani, there and gone. Very specific plan to remove United States forces from war in Afghanistan, obviously personal to me, but not leaving behind military equipment or having 13 American service members killed in an abortion of an operation. Very limited strike on Iranian nuclear infrastructure so they can't do anything, bringing kilotons or megatons against us or anybody else in the world. Very limited strike against, not a strike, very limited law enforcement operation to bring in Maduro, supported by the military because obviously he had military capabilities to bring to bear. You should expect that to continue.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
The president has talked about regime change. He's talking about putting in a government that is pro-America. So how is the U.S. going to do that without having a physical presence, a military presence in Venezuela? Or is that, with what the president has been saying, is that actually not going to happen?
The president has talked about, and Secretary Rubio has spoken about, wanting to see free and fair elections there, right? Obviously, we spoke about the individual, Delcy Rodriguez. Delcy Rodriguez is a person that I think everybody hopefully can acknowledge would not be a preferred partner, clearly a Maduro loyalist. You're not going to rise to the position of Venezuelan vice president under Maduro without being a Maduro loyalist. So not a preference of a partner, right? There's not a puppet being put into place right there right now. Everybody should be able to assess that on their own. There is a desire to see not a vacuum in place until you can get to a point in time where the Venezuelan people can have a free and fair election, not under the shadow of somebody like Maduro. So you're not going to get a date from me on when that would happen because it would be impossible to produce a date for when that would happen.
Mr. Chairman, you say that the
What's your follow-on?
Is the U.S. going to do anything to compel elections, to coerce elections? And also, should this serve as a model? A lot of your colleagues have been talking about coercion. with or that it finds offensive or anti-American?
I don't really care if the word is coercion, intimidation, assessment, or anything else. This administration has taken a very important term, full weight and power of the United States of America. That's an important term that every other country and their intelligence assets assess. What is the full weight and power of the United States of America? And they're putting real meaning into that. And so whether our Ford Carrier group is in the waters directly off Venezuela or having a shore leave in Miami or whether they're across the world recognizes our capabilities, what they are against Russian-sold weapon systems, what they are against Chinese-sold weapon systems, and everything else. The capabilities that we can bring to bear, they recognize it in a very limited way based upon what they see on video. That is peace through strength. They recognize what can be brought to bear. They recognize what relationship with the United States of America looks like. It should be laughable that anybody looks at the globe and says, yeah, I want a future for my people that looks like that of Russia, Iran, North Korea, and Venezuela, those alliances, and how they align with China. That's the future we want for our people, versus that of the United States of America and our allies like Israel and Australia and Japan and our NATO and EU partners. It should be laughable that anybody should want anything different. And you can see that vividly, both in the strength that we bring to bear and the lifestyle that we bring to bear for people just because of the freedom that's offered. I'm going to make one last question, and it's going to be to somebody that hasn't asked a question. You haven't asked a question. Go ahead. And then I'm going to move on.
If violence does commence down there, right, we're hearing some reports that there were some shots or maybe explosions, it's unclear. But if violence ensues, what do you think the Americans should do? What should we do? Will there be boots on the ground to ensure the safety of the Venezuelans and the security down there?
I think the Venezuelan people and the acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, who has a capability over forces there. They don't have great military forces and capabilities to begin with, but has a control and command structure over that. That's why she's in place. Should work to maintain stability in there, and there's an expectation that stability will be maintained. But I think it would be unreasonable to think there aren't disruptors there. Iran has been there, China has been there, Russia has been there. There was a Chinese envoy that was there when these operations took place. China was trying to send a message to the United States of America. They know what an envoy means. When we send an envoy to Taiwan, China loses its mind over it. They know how serious it is to send an envoy somewhere. They were trying to send a message to America. Instead, they got a message that, and basically dictators across the globe got a message that China is not your hedge of protection. They're, a very cheap friend, a very cheap partner. And that's I think, a message that went out there. But they're still there. All of these entities that were there previously, with their tentacles wrapped around various groups, whether it be FARC or somebody else, they're there with their tentacles wrapped around trying to create an instability. And I think anybody that wouldn't acknowledge that probably shouldn't be doing this work, right? You haven't assessed what's the reality of the world, right? We know that's just common sense that's taken place. So the acting VP will hopefully work against that and be able to, the acting president rather, will hopefully be able to work against that and provide a stability until they can get to the point that the country can have free and fair elections and chart a hopeful path for the Venezuelan people, one that doesn't send drugs and enemies to the United States of America, one that doesn't allow Hezbollah to fester directly off our shores and work to use it as a base for espionage and kinetic operations against the United States of America, if that's what they wanted to do, and one that's not destabilizing to the other partners in the region, like Brazil and like Colombia and others, but one that becomes a hope. And I think they have that opportunity. That's what the president has created there by bringing this person to justice, is the opportunity for hope. I wish you all the best.
Mr. Chair, is the United States
Thanks, guys.
considering